This is a $25 US budget deck tech for Orvar the Allform. Orvar the Allform is a spoiler from Kaldheim that reads 3 and a blue for a 3/3. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets one or more other permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of one of those permanents. Before we begin, please subscribe. So this deck cares about targeting our stuff so we can make copies of it. This is where the target category comes in. So these are instants or sorceries that will target one of our permanents so that we can take advantage of our commander. These come in two main camps: those that draw us a card and those that can target any permanent. One example of one that can draw us a card is Shadow Rift, which reads, blue for an instant. Target creature gains shadow until end of turn. Draw a card. One example of something that will let us target any permanent is Moonlace. Moonlace is a single blue for an instant. Target spell or permanent becomes colorless. This is good because we can either make a copy of any creature and then we will also draw a card, or we can make a copy of any permanent. Making copies is what this deck revolves around. It's what we take advantage of, and it's what we do. But what exactly are we going to make copies of? Before I answer this, please subscribe and join my Discord server, because YouTube likes to turn off my comments. There are many things we want to copy, but one example of this could be the ETB category. So these are permanents, mostly creatures, that will trigger when they enter the battlefield. So if we make a copy of them, we will instantly get that enter the battlefield trigger. One example of this could be Cloudconseer, which is 2 and a blue for a 1/1 flyer. Whenever Cloudconseer enters the battlefield, draw a card. This is good because if we make a copy of it, we get to draw a card, and we can make an army of flyers. Another example could be Precursor Golem, which is 5 for a 3/3 golem. When it enters the battlefield, make 2 3/3 colorless golem creature tokens. And whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single golem, that player copies that spell for each other golem that spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those golems. So this requires a lot of rules clarification. When you cast a spell targeting a single golem, you will only make a copy of the golem that you targeted, because Orvar says when you cast the spell, and the copies that Precursor Golem creates will not be cast. So they do not trigger Orvar. But if we target Precursor Golem itself, we can create a copy of Precursor Golem, and then when the copy enters the battlefield, it will make 2 more golems on the ETB. Beyond all this rules fluff is an amazing card. For one thing, when we target it, we can make 3 3/3 golems. And if we have a spell that will target a single golem, we can replicate it to all of our golems. So this can be great for things that say, draw us a card. If we have 6 golems, and then we replicate it to all of those, then that draw 1 card could become a draw 6. And then when you draw 6 cards, you're likely to draw another card that can replicate. Before we get to the next part, please subscribe and join my Discord server, because YouTube likes to turn off my comments. We also have some other cards that we want to clone but don't fit into the other categories. This is the others to clone category. This could include heroic cards like Artisan of Forms, which reads 1 and a blue for a 1/1 creature human wizard with heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Artisan of Forms, you may have Artisan of Forms become a copy of target creature and gain this ability. So this is good for several reasons. First of all, if we have one card that we want to make a lot of copies of, then we can suddenly, with only one spell, make 3 copies of it. And second of all, if we have an opponent's creature that we want to copy, we can target Artisan of Forms, then we can make Artisans of Forms a copy of our opponent's creature, and then we can copy the copy, and we will suddenly have 2 copies of our opponent's creature that we wanted to clone. So it's just an incredibly easy and powerful way to get our opponent's creatures or get a lot of our own creatures. This category also includes just other random things that we would want to clone, like Wavebreak Hippocamp, which reads 2 and a blue for 2/2 enchantment creature Horsefish. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, draw a card. We are running 32 instants, so we can draw huge amounts of cards from either just having the original or from making copies of it. This deck is also running huge amounts of interaction. There are 13 cards in this category. We have the staples like Negate, Reality Shift, and Whelming Wave. We have bounce creatures like Mana War, which reads 2 and a blue for 2/2 creature jellyfish. When Mana War enters the battlefield, return target creature to its owner's hand. So if we make a clone of this, we can then bounce something. We also have Voracious Great Shark, which reads 3 blue, blue for a 5/4 shark with flash. When Voracious Great Shark enters the battlefield, counter target artifact or creature spell. So if we make a copy of this, we will not only get a 5/4 shark, but we will also be able to counter an artifact or creature. We also have Ramp, which is a bit split into two different categories. We have post-Orvar Ramp and pre-Orvar Ramp. So for the pre-Orvar Ramp, we're talking about the usual stuff. 1 or 2 mana, which will let us play Orvar turn 3 or earlier. But for post-Orvar Ramp, we have things that will target our lands, which will then make a copy of our lands. Sol Ring is a good example of pre-Orvar Ramp and would allow us to cast Orvar on turn 2. A good example of post-Orvar Ramp would be Aquatex Will, which reads, blue for tribal sorcery Merfolk. Put a flood counter on target land. That land is an island in addition to its other types, for as long as it has a flood counter on it. If you control a merfolk, draw a card. Orvar has Changeling, so it is a merfolk. It has all the creature types, so we will always draw from Aquatex Will. In terms of lands, we have 35 islands, Glimmer Post, and Cloud Post because they are great to clone. If you made it this far in the video, you probably enjoyed it, so please subscribe. There's a link in the description to the whole deck, and this is a photo of the whole deck. But to be clear, this $25 budget does not include Orvar. There was no accurate price for Orvar at the time of recording. I also expect many people to make Orvar decks, and therefore Orvar related cards will go up in price. So if you open up this deck and it's suddenly $50, I would not be surprised. Also, Orvar has a second ability, and it reads, whenever a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard this card, create a token that's a copy of target permanent. I didn't read this because it's just not going to be relevant in almost any scenarios. Typically when I talk about budget, I say this deck just isn't really missing out on much at this budget. And that's usually true, because this is how I typically build. I start with some cards, and then I cut the ones that just aren't worth their price. But unfortunately, with a $25 budget, this simply is not true. There are a significant amount of cards that could have huge positive impacts on how this deck performs. Now, this can range from anything that's just an upgrade of what we already have, like our ramp, draw, and removal. It could be something completely new that allows us to do new and powerful things. For example, Sakashima of 1,000 Faces reads 3 and a blue for 3/1. You may have Sakashima of 1,000 Faces enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature you control, except it has Sakashima of 1,000 Faces other abilities. The legend rule does not apply among permanents you control. So, we can copy Orvar, and then we can target Orvar, and when we target Orvar, it's going to trigger the original Orvar, and it's going to trigger the Sakashima Orvar. So then we'll have 4 Orvars, and then if we target another one, we'll have 8, and we can just make huge amounts of Orvars, and either kill our opponents by dealing combat damage with Orvars, or we can cast it on target something else and make huge amounts of copies of that. This entire out-of-budget category would only cost you $230 to buy, so it's really not breaking the bank. Ever since Commander's Quarters stopped covering $25 budget decks, no one has tried to claim the space, to my knowledge. Should I try and do that? Let me know what you think. I also would like to address that my last 2 videos have had their comments disabled, and I expect that to happen again. My theory is that some algorithm is flagging me as being below 13. I am not below 13, I am 15. So I don't know why this is happening, and I don't think there's anything I can do about it. So if you want to get in contact with me, join my Discord server. I'm very active there. Made it to the end of this video, you probably enjoyed it, so please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and join my Discord server. Link in the description. There is also links in the description to whatever I talked about in this video, so it should all be there. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.